Eye and the Colorful World. So this chapter, Human Eye and the Colorful World, is related to the chapters that we have studied before. It is related to light, it is related to reflection, and it is mostly related to the chapter Refraction of Light at Curved Surfaces. Why? Because in detail we would be studying about the human eye and the human eye lens, which would then deal with refraction through lens and image formations through lens. Hence, when we go through studying the chapter Human Eye and the Colorful World, I will give you an entire overview of the Refraction of Light at Curved Surfaces chapter. So these are the previous chapters that would have been covered by you, and I assume that you know the basic refraction rules. If not, I will go over them with you in this particular session. So without any further ado, let us begin studying the chapter Human Eye and the Colorful World. In this particular session, we would be discussing, as I told you, refraction of light through curved surfaces. Mostly we would be discussing refraction as a base phenomenon, and what lenses are, and how refraction takes place through lenses, and how do rays behave when they pass through a certain lens. Then we will talk about what least distance of vision is. Means what is the smallest distance at which you can see an object clearly. And then we will talk about the structure of the human eye. There are parts that are related to the human eye and what functions do they have. And since that we would be studying in detail, so we would be only studying 3 topics in this particular session. We will make a summary, and then we would be discussing what we would be doing in the next session. So now, refraction through curved surfaces or through lenses, I am giving you an overview. Bending of light when it travels from one medium to another is termed as refraction. One more thing before we study this entire chapter, you have to remember that light has dual nature. Till now we have been studying that light travels in straight lines, and that after it travels from one medium to another, it is changing its direction. But for this chapter, you will have to also understand that light has dual nature. It means that it can not only travel in straight lines, but it can also travel in the form of waves. You must have seen a sound speaker like this, where if you see sound waves are coming from the speaker, you always see that they come like this and they grow bigger in size. Sound waves. So these are waves. They are not very clearly drawn, but they are semicircular for now. These are waves, a part of waves. All you have to remember right now is that light not only travels in straight line direction, light also travels in the form of waves. It depends on what kind of medium light is using, or where light is traveling, or how light has to travel. This is all something you will study later in the later classes or later sessions. Right now, all you have to remember for this chapter is that light not only travels in the straight direction or in a straight line, light also can travel in the form of waves. So therefore, bending of light when it travels from one medium to another is called refraction. In physics, refraction is the change in direction of a wave which is passing from one medium to another. So you know, if this is a medium that is separating, this is the line that is separating two medium, and light is coming in this direction. If this is the rarer medium and this is the denser medium, then light will travel towards the normal and it will go in a certain direction. When light travels from a rarer to a denser medium, it will bend towards the normal, but when light travels from a denser to a rarer medium, light bends away from the normal. The reason for refraction and image formation, the core reason for refraction is because light has to minimize the time that it takes to reach you. So we know that the speed of light decreases when it changes its medium. So now light has to see in what way can it reach you in the shortest time. And to do that, light bends in certain directions, in certain angles, and it travels through a certain different path to reach you in the minimum, least possible amount of time. So the speed of light is less in denser mediums, while it is more in rarer mediums. Speed of light decreases or reduces when it tends to bend towards the normal, and speed of light increases when it bends away from the normal. Both of the cases are done to minimize the time that light has to take to reach one's eye. Now, the laws of refraction, you know that the first law is that the incident ray, the refracted ray, and the normal to the point of incidence are on same plane at the and the second law is the Snell's law of refraction, that tells you that refractive index of the first medium multiplied by sine of angle of incidence equal to refractive index of the second medium multiplied by sine of angle of refraction, n1 sine I equal to n2 sine r. Now, lenses. We know that lens is a transparent material which is bound by two surfaces which are spherical. This is a lens. This is the transparent material inside that we're talking about, bound by two surfaces. One thing I will tell you about the lenses that we have studied in our previous classes is that they are all hard. They are bound by hard surfaces which have certain radii of curvature that you cannot change. It's not like this is a particular lens whose radii is variable. This has one radii and this has one radii. This surface has one radii. Let's say this is R1 and let's say this is R2. Both of them are fixed. You cannot change them. But when we will study what human eye lens is made up of, it is made up of a transparent flexible material, due to which you can see that the muscles that control this lens, they can change, contract or expand, and they can change the focal length and the radii of curvature of this lens. That is what makes the human eye so flexible and so important, is because it is something, it is a lens that can change its focal length. It can variate between different focal lengths, while normal lenses outside, they cannot do this. Lens is bound by, if lens is bound by two surfaces, either one or either both of them are spherical. So it is not necessary for a lens to always have both surfaces as spherical. You can also have a plane surface. For example, this is one surface and the other one can be a curved surface. So this is a plano-convex lens. You can also have plano-concave, you can have biconcave, biconvex, convexo-concave, which is a mixture of convex lens and concave lens, and you can also have concavo-convex, which is a mixture of concave lens and convex lens. So this is all about lenses. When certain rays of light which are incident on lenses, we discussed in our previous classes or through previous chapters, you know that rays which are parallel to your principal axis after refraction will pass through principal focus or appear to be coming from the principal focus. This is a certain ray of light which is traveling. Here is your principal focus, principal axis. It is traveling along principal axis. So here is one ray of light. Let's say it's parallel to your principal axis. After your refraction, let's say the lens is this big. After refraction, let's say this point is focus. After refraction, it will pass through focus. Rays passing through or directed through to the focus will emerge parallel to the principal axis. So, I was here. Let me redraw. Rays which are passing through or directed to the focus will emerge parallel to principal axis. Here is a ray. Here is your principal axis. Here is a certain lens. Here is your focus. let's say a ray is coming, it passes through the focus. So after refraction, this is a case of convex lens. After refraction, it will become parallel to principal axis. Rays that are directed through the optical center, that is the middle point or the origin, they pass undeviated. Absolutely no refraction takes place. Actually, refraction does take place, but they pass undeviated. Now, rays passing along principal axis will also go undeviated. Why? Because principal axis is also going through the origin. This is also a certain line which is passing through this particular origin. And any ray of light which is in the direction of the origin or optical center will go undeviated. This is all for the refraction through lenses and overview. I hope that the basics of refraction have been reminded to you. So now that we study the rays of light and their interaction with human eye lens, I wouldn't have to repeat it again and again. You would understand how refraction is taking place, because we will focus more on what is exactly happening than how rays are behaving. So you already have understood how rays behave. You just have to now focus on how they are interacting with the human eye. Now, this is the lens formula that you have already studied in your previous classes. That is 1 divided by the image distance minus 1 divided by the object distance is equal to 1 divided by the focal length of that particular lens. This is a lens formula. If you use particular sign convention, you can get image distances, object distances, and relate them to the focal length of the given lens. This is the formula that we will be using extensively in the coming sessions. So I advise you that you remember the lens formula. This is the most important formula. In your previous classes, you must have studied about the curved surface formula, which relates your refractive indexes. You must have studied lens maker's formula. But right now, what you have to focus on is the lens formula. That is 1 by V minus 1 by U equal to 1 by F, where V is image distance, U is object distance, and F is focal length. Focal length. So this is a very, very, very important formula. I urge you remember this formula at all times. So this is all for refraction through lenses. Now let's talk about least distance of vision. What do you mean by least? The smallest distance of vision. What does it mean? The smallest distance, the minimum distance at which when you keep an object, your eye, if it can see it clearly, then that is your least distance of vision. If you bring the object any closer from that particular distance, then the object will become blurry and you will not be able to see the image of the object. So here is the activity that has been described to you, that if you take any of the objects, let's say you take a particular book and you bring it closer to your face and you keep bringing it closer to your face until suddenly the image that you are seeing or the book that you're seeing becomes blurry to you. So move the particular book back at a certain point where it suddenly is clear. So this point where from the blurry image it suddenly turns into a clear image, that particular point, mark that point, and now measure the distance between your eye and that point. This point is the least distance of vision. So let me describe the activity to you. You take a textbook, you hold it with your hands in front of you at a certain distance, and you try and read the contents of the page. After that, you slowly start to move that book towards your eye until it is very close to your eye. You will see that the printed letters appear blurry, or your eye has to put a lot of strain into viewing that particular content of the book. So slowly move the book backwards and move it to a position where you can see the printed letters clearly without straining your eye. And once you measure this distance between your eye and the textbook, you will note down this value. So here is your eye, here is the book, here is the distance. Let's see, the book is here. For now it has some content. This is some image. You know that from here you can see it clearly, so you bring the particular book closer. Then you bring the particular book closer. Let's say after this exact point, you cannot see the image of the contents of that book clearly right after this point. So what is this exact point? What is this distance between your eye and this point? This distance is least distance of vision, the minimum distance at which you can see objects around you clearly. If you bring any object closer than this distance, let's say this distance is V. If you bring any object closer to your eye which is at a distance which is smaller than V, then your eye may or may not be able to see that object. It depends on person to person. If your eye cannot see that object after a certain distance, then that is because it has passed the least distance of vision. And after this, images will appear blurred. If you keep the book here, then this will appear blurry. And that is what is least distance of vision. It is something you have to keep in mind again, because we would be using it in our later calculations. So from this activity, you come to know that to see an object comfortably and distinctly means being able to identify the contents clearly. You must hold it at a distance of about 25 centimeters. When you measure the distance from the activity that we just did, you will see that at a distance of 25 centimeters at least, any object that you are holding in front of you should be at a distance of at least 25 centimeters from your eye. This is your eye, this is the book, and this should be 25 centimeters. This distance is called least distance of vision. This varies from person to person. For example, maybe my least distance of vision is not same as yours, as I use spectacles and I have an eye defect, which is myopia, something we will study in again the later classes. So it varies from person to person, and it also varies from age. At a young age, the muscles around the eye, they are very strong and they can bear a lot of strain. So if you, from the naked eye, if you are measuring the least distance of vision for a very young child, it might be closer than 25 centimeters. He might be able to hold the book very close and still be able to see the contents very clearly. And this is because that child's least distance of vision is smaller than yours. And in old age, you see that old people have to strain a lot. They have to put a lot of strain on the eye muscles to be able to see the content of or the image of any object that they are holding around them very clearly. This is because the muscles around your eye, we will discuss the structure of the eye later. The muscles around the eye, they become very weak and they are not able to put that much strain on an object, and hence their least distance of vision keeps increasing. So it can even go up to 1 to even 2 meters. That is a very, very, very long distance. So that is what you have to remember as of now for least distance of vision. Next. Viewing angle. Now that we have discussed the least distance of vision, which is normally for a healthy eye 25 centimeter, let us now discuss the angle below or above which you can see an object clearly. For a healthy human being with a healthy eye lens, the viewing angle is 60 degrees. At 60 degrees, you can any object that is placed within this particular vision degree can be viewed clearly. So the rays coming from an extreme ends of an object form an angle to the eye. As you can see in the figure that has been given to you, if this angle is below 60 degree, we can see the whole object. If this angle is above 60 degree, you can see only a part of the object. So this is your diagram. This is your eye. Let's see, this is an object which forms, let's say this is an object AD. Rays coming from the extreme ends here and here. This will form an angle of 60 degrees to the eye. If this object is any closer, let's say AD is here now, it will form a smaller angle. Anyway, AD will be visible to us because the rays from the extreme ends can go. But let's say that we have another situation. You have AD and you have, this is AD here and this is 60 degrees. Let's say the same object is now brought closer. This is AD now. So the angle now that AD is going to form is going to be greater than 60 degrees. This is the angle. To make it clearer, AD was first here, but now the same object is brought here. This is your eye here. This same object AD was first at a certain distance forming an angle 60 degrees. Now if you bring this same object closer, this is the extreme end now. So let's draw rays from the extreme end. The black angle is greater than the red angle. So it is an angle which is above 60 degree and probably it measures somewhere about 80 degrees. Let's just say. So if the angle is above 60 degrees, then we can only see a part of the object. So you will only be able to see this part, exactly this part of AD when it is brought nearer to you. So now you have to take in consideration both the angle, viewing angle, which is 60 degrees, maximum angle at which we are able to see the whole object. It is called angle of vision. For a healthy human being, it is 60 degrees. But again, it will vary from person to person and from age to age. Why? Because the human lens is a flexible lens. You can change its focal length by straining it or by contracting it. Something we will study later, and which particular eye muscle helps you to do this, we will study later. For right now, you have to remember that the maximum angle at which we are able to see the whole object is called angle of vision. This angle of vision for a healthy human being is 60 degrees and it varies from person to person. So the least distance of distinct vision is about 25 centimeters and the value of angle of vision of human beings is about 60. And this value changes from person to person and it changes with age. Let's now come to structure of the human eye. This is going to be the most important topic in the entire chapter, structure of the human eye. Let's go through the structure. This is the eye. This is the eye and this is the front part that you see normally. This is what happens behind the eye socket. This is a nerve that goes to the brain. So there are parts of the human eye that we will be discussing one by one. Wherever the surface where the image of an object that you see is formed on your eye is called retina. It's here. This is retina. This is the small white layer that you see over your eye. It is a hard surface. It is called cornea. It usually is the first layer. It protects your eye lens, and it is the layer through which the rays first enter your eye. Then sometimes you see that your eyes are always wet. There is a liquid that is there between the cornea and the eye lens, and it is called aqueous humor. This is your particular eye lens, which is controlled by muscles called ciliary muscles right here. So these ciliary muscles can actually expand and contract, which will change the shape and size of your lens. Since you can change the shape and size of your lens, the radii of curvature and obviously the focal length can vary. So our eye lens is a lens which can have varying focal length. Then in the middle of the lens, there is a black dot. It's called pupil, and the eyes enter through that. Pupil expands when you have to let a lot of light. When there is only, the area is very dark or there is less light in the room, then the pupil, the black dot, it will expand to let as much light it can, so that an image can be formed clearly. When there is too much light, you see that usually you close your eyes or you tend to shrink your eyes. Even the black dot, when there is a lot of light or there is direct sunlight glaring at you, it will contract or it will become small in size to not let a lot of rays of light pass through at once. Iris is this part of the eye. It will also help you control the eye lens in some way. So these are the parts of the human eye, or these are the parts that form the structure of the human eye: retina, lens, ciliary muscles, iris, pupil, aqueous humor, and cornea. Let's discuss each in detail. The human eye is one of the most important sense organs. It enables us to see the object and the colors around us. We know that this is your eyeball, here this part, and this is spherical in shape. Front portion is sharply curved, and I told you it is covered by a protective membrane which is called cornea. Cornea is the only portion which covers your lens, and it is visible from the outer side. Behind cornea, there is this liquid I told you, and this liquid is termed as aqueous humor. And behind this liquid exactly, you have your lens. And behind this lens, you have this surface called retina, which is responsible for image formation. On this surface, this is your screen. This is the screen of the eye. Between the aqueous humor and the lens, we have a small muscular diaphragm, which is this. It's called iris, which has a small hole called pupil. Usually that pupil appears that it is right in the center of the eye lens. It is this iris that controls or has this pupil, and it is the colored part that we see in the eye. So when you look at the eye very closely in the mirror, you see brown lines, sometimes yellow lines, or sometimes you see a color to the eye. Actually, this is your iris. It can vary in color, but that is exactly your iris. It is a muscular diaphragm, it contains your pupil, and it can vary in color. So the pupil appears black because any light falling on it goes into the eye, and there is almost no chance of light coming back to the outside. Usually light is coming in a certain direction. It enters the pupil, and somehow after some points of refraction, or it will form the image right here. This is the point-like image which is formed. It is a real image, it is inverted, and then the optic nerve carries this message to the brain, and the brain tells you to see the image in front of you in the right position. So any light which is entering this pupil has almost no chance of coming out. So the amount of light that can go inside is controlled by the iris. Iris is a muscular diaphragm. So we have our iris, which exactly controls the pupil right here, and when you have some source of light which is very close to you, and a lot of rays of light are trying to enter at the same time, the iris will make the pupil contract in size so that less rays can enter through and your eye lens is not damaged. And when there is absolutely darkness and there is only a very small source of light which is very far from you, this particular iris will make the pupil expand so that a lot of rays can enter at the same time, and hence the image that is formed is not actually disturbed, blurred, or less in intensity. It is exactly how it is, how you see it. So in a low light condition, the iris makes the pupil to expand so that more light is allowed to go in, and in case of bright or excess light condition, it makes the pupil contract, thereby preventing the excess light and not going into the eye. Thus, iris is the muscular diaphragm which will enable your pupil to act as a variable aperture. If you remember, aperture is the effective diameter, and that will allow how much, from where all your light rays can pass through. It depends on how big your lens is. So that pupil is controlled by this iris. So if you have to have a one-on-one correspondence with the lenses in real life, you can say that iris enables your pupil to act as a variable aperture. It will expand and it will contract, and it depends how many light rays can enter through. The lens is hard in the middle and gradually becomes soft on the outer side. So this is our eye lens, which is spherical in shape. It is saying that here, exactly in the middle parts, it's hard, or the material is harder than that on the edges. Here it is held by your ciliary muscles, and every time you have to see an object at a varying length, these ciliary muscles, they contract or they expand this lens, or they change the shape and size of the lens, and that is why at the edges usually it's softer than that in the middle. The light that enters the eye will form the image on the retina. So this is your eye, and behind your eye there is this screen, and this screen is your retina, and here is where the image is formed. Distance between lens and retina, since this is the lens here, this is the lens over here, this is the retina, this distance is never changing. Your lens cannot shift. Your eyes are always in one place, and your retina right at the back is always in one place. So the distance between the image that is formed and the lens will not change, and it will always is about 2.5 centimeters for any position of the object. So the image distance for our eye lens is always fixed, V, which is 2.5 centimeters. So the distance between the image and the optical center is always going to be 2.5 centimeters. In our previous chapters, when we were discussing the refraction overview, we have studied how image distance remains constant only if there is a change in the focal length of the lens. Yeah, because if your focal length is constant, your image distance will vary according to the object distance. If object distance is at a certain distance, image distance will keep varying. If you change the object distance, image distance will change. Why? Because our focal length was the same. But right now, if you have to keep your image distance constant, that is this 2.5 centimeters has to not change, then your focal length has to change. And we know that our human eye lens is capable of changing its radii of curvature because of the ciliary muscles. The shape and size of the human eye lens can change, and hence it can vary in their focal length. Since the focal length can vary, you can keep the image distance constant. So the focal length of a lens usually is dependent on the material by which it is made. So we need to change the focal length of the eye lens to get the same image distance for all the positions. So you keep changing U in front of the eye, you keep an object here, or you keep an object at an infinite distance, or you keep your object 2 kilometers away or 5 kilometers away. Image will always form at 2.5 distance of 2.5 centimeter from the lens on the retina. So this is only possible when you are changing the shape of the lens or the focal length. When the shape will change, radii will change, and hence focal length will vary. So as I told you, the ciliary muscle which is attached to the eye helps the eye to change its focal length. You have the eye structure here, the lens is somewhat here, and it is held by ciliary muscles. Here is your cornea, you have the iris, and you have aqueous humor here. So this is your particular behind the scenes of your eye lens or eye structure of the exact human eye, and this spherical shape is your lens. These lines represent the ciliary muscles. These ciliary muscles will help you to change the focal length by changing the radii of curvature. So when the eye is focused on a distant object, ciliary muscles are relaxed so that the focal length has maximum value, which is equal to the distance from the retina. The parallel rays which will come into the eye then focus on the retina and the object will be formed clearly. So here are parallel rays, let's say they are coming from an infinite distance and they will form the image right at the retina. And for this, the focal length doesn't have to change. The ciliary muscles, they don't have to expand or contract. But when the eye is focused on a closer object, then ciliary muscles are strained and the focal length of the eye has to decrease because the image distance is very close, and hence the ciliary muscles adjust the focal length that the image is always formed on the retina. And this process where you have to adjust the focal length of your eye lens to be able to adjust to different positions of the object in front of you is called accommodation. However, these muscles cannot strain beyond a limit, and we know that the focal length cannot be adjusted to form an image of a retina if an object is placed closer than 25 centimeters. So you know that if an object is the least distinct of vision, which is at 25 centimeters, if there is any object that is coming beyond this and the distance is decreasing, for example 20 centimeters, 19, 18, then your ciliary muscles are not able to strain your eye lens so much that it can adjust to that position because they are muscles, and when you grow up these muscles will become gradually weaker and weaker, and they won't be able to strain and adjust the shape of the eye as they were able to do in the previous ages. Or even after that, there is a certain limit to which you can adjust the focal length. So if you keep bringing an object really close to your eye, ciliary muscles are not going to magically show that object to you. Ciliary muscles, even their constraints, have a limit, and this is roughly equal to the minimum distance of distinct vision, which is roughly 25 centimeters for a healthy eye. So as I told you, the eye lens will form, rays will come to the lens, and after refraction they will form the image at the retina. The image that is formed at retina is real, inverted and diminished. So it is an inverted image. But when you are looking at objects around you, if your eye is looking at an object, it always sees the straight upright object. This is because this particular image message is carried from this optic nerve right here to the brain, and your brain straightens the image, it inverts the image back, it straightens the image and tells you to see the object upright. The retina is a delicate membrane which contains about 125 million receptors, which are nerves. and they are called rods and cones. They receive this light signal, and through this neural network they carry it to the brain. Brain will interpret this signal, and we finally process this information, and we see the object as it is, upright, in the right shape, right size, and right color. So that is it for image formation by lenses introduction. In the later classes we would be discussing about how these rays are going in, what is the maximum focal length, what is minimum focal length, and what are the defects of the eye. So for this particular session, we studied what refraction was. We studied that bending of light when it travels from one medium to another is refraction. We know that in physics, refraction is the change in direction of wave which is passing from one medium to the other. We know that light travels from when a rarer medium to a denser medium, it will bend towards the normal. When light travels from a denser medium to a rarer medium, it will bend away from the normal. Lenses formed from a transparent material is bounded by two surfaces, or at least one of the surfaces, which term to be spherical. Then we came to human eye and the colorful world's introduction, and we saw that if you want to see an object clearly, comfortably, and distinctly, you must hold it at a distance of about 25 centimeters from your eye. But this distance, called least distance of distinct vision, varies from person to person, and it also varies from age. Human eye is one of the most important sense organs, and it enables us to see the object and colors around us. The eyeball is the nearly spherical in shape. Front portion is sharply curved and is covered by a transparent protective membrane called cornea. Behind cornea you have a place which is filled with a liquid. This part is called aqueous humor behind this crystalline lens, and it is responsible for image formation, and it's called retina, the screen of the eye. Between aqueous humor and the lens we have a muscular diaphragm called iris. Iris controls the pupil, and it helps to regulate how much light ray is going to enter your eye at once. Iris is the colored part that you see in an eye. So this is it for this session. As I told you, in the next sessions we will see image formation by eye lenses, and we will discuss minimum and maximum focal lengths. We will see the common defects of vision, which is myopia, hypermetropia, and presbyopia. That is it for this session. Until we meet next session, I hope everybody is safe, and thank you and goodbye.